Now we're going to take a look at fluids that are moving and Bernoulli's equation. So the first thing we need to think about is pressure. So if you have a water bottle and you squish it, you can think of it as that you've given it potential energy. Just like if you squish a spring, you're storing energy up, and once there's a way to release that energy, it's going to come out. Just like if you poke a hole in the water bottle while you're squishing it, the water is going to start squishing out. So think about pressure like potential energy. And if you keep thinking about energy like that, we can think about fluids as having something like kinetic energy, which looks very similar to the kinetic energy equations. But the only difference now is that we're using density instead of mass or moment of inertia. And then in terms of gravitational potential energy, this is the energy that a liquid would have because of how high up it is. And just as a heads up, I have height here, but you might also see it as rho gy or rho g delta y. So just thinking about height or y as the same thing. So either way, same thing. And then work is kind of like pressure, it's like potential energy in some ways. So just like how we have conservation of energy, where we can add these types of energy together and work to get however much energy there is at the end, we can do exactly the same thing with Bernoulli's principle, except now the only difference is that we're going to have pressure on both sides of the equation. So just think of it as another potential energy. Both the easiest and the hardest part about Bernoulli's equation is figuring out where your zeros go, or what things cancel out. So the first thing I want to notice is atmospheric pressure. So let's say we have something that's open to the air on both sides, like a pool and a hose, where both ends of the system are open to the atmosphere. Well, if this is one atmosphere on both sides, then what's going to happen is it'll essentially cancel out. Because if I have 101,300 over here and over here, then when I subtract it to the other side, it'll go away. So you could think about it as gauge pressure. As long as both are the same pressure, you can cancel them out. Also, we can assume that the density of a liquid stays the same. So we're going to be dealing with incompressible fluids like water most of the time. So just assume that the density is going to stay the same. It just makes things a lot simpler right now. And then if the cross-sectional area of one spot is really big compared to another, you can assume that it has a velocity of 0 there. So for example, if I have, let's say, the size of a swimming pool, all filled with water here, and a hose attached to the bottom because I want to drain the pool, and I'm going to drain this giant swimming pool with a garden hose. Well, the garden hose water, as it's coming out here, it definitely has a velocity. You'll see it shooting out. But if I look at the height of this and how fast this is going to be going up and down, it basically isn't moving. Like literally the wind might make more movement in the top of the pool than what this hose is going to make. So this is where I would say that the velocity at the top of this is 0, but the velocity down here is big. And last but not least, we have to pick a height of 0 somewhere for essentially our gravitational potential energy. And so I like to use this bottom height as my height of 0, just like we used the height of the table as a height of 0, or the height of the floor as 0. We didn't use sea level as 0 when we did gravitational potential energy. We're going to do the same thing here. So let's look at these and think about what is going to be 0 for each of these. So when we have this, the pressures will be different, the heights are different, and the velocities will be different because the diameter is changing. So that's not going to cancel anything out. So for Venturi, that's what this is called, where the pipes are open to the air, which is fascinating because technically at the top of both of these, the pressures are equal. But if you say that the pressures are equal, you have to notice that the height of the water is different. And so these heights of the water are compensated for right here. Even though down here in the middle of the pipe, the heights are the same, we're going to have to think about it as the pressure from those pipes. Or the other option, instead of doing the pressures being equal, we could do it a different way. Instead, we could say that the heights are the same and we could focus on this point here, but recognize that the pressures are different. And you say, oh, actually, this has a pressure at this point, this has a pressure P1, and this has a pressure P2. And the pressures are different. And then once you have those two different pressures, then you could figure out the change in height. So if you look at the change in pressure, that's going to be equal to, pressure. The change in pressure, that'll be equal to rho g, and then your change in height or change in y. So either way you do it, it will work. The math ends up being exactly the same. It's just how you think about it. Are you focusing on the dots down here and saying that the pressure is different? Or are you focusing on the top of the water here and having their gravitational potential energy be different? Either way, you will have two different velocities for sure, because when it's wider, it's going to be going slower, and when it's skinnier, it'll be going faster, because you have to have the same amount of water go through. So you are a nurse deciding how high the IV bag needs to be so that the IV fluid will go into your patient's veins. The pressure in your patient's arm is 2,000 pascals, or about 15 millimeters of mercury. How high do you have to lift an IV to be able to flow the fluid into a person's arm? So if you have a bag of fluids to go into somebody's arm, if you lift it higher, it's going to go in faster. And if you go lower, like let's say you're donating blood and you hook someone up and then you have the bag below you, the fluid will go into the bag. Well, at a certain point, you raise it up and it'll be exactly enough for it to be balanced. And then any higher than that, the fluid will go into your arm. So we're looking for that minimum height. And that's why we can assume that the liquid is not moving, because if I lift it any higher than that, then it will start moving. So we're looking for that balance point. The next thing to notice is that this is 2,000 pascals and this is 101,300 for 1 atmosphere. So we know that this is gauge pressure for our arm. So if I'm thinking about this in terms of an energy bar chart and I have this as the bag and this is your arm, I'm going to have a certain amount that is 1 atmosphere. And that'll be the same for both sides, plus this pressure in your arm, which will be the extra. And then I'm going to have, well, both of them we just said are not, we're going to assume are not moving, because any higher than that, it will move. And then we just need to pick a height of 0. Well, the convenient height of 0 is going to be here at your arm. And then whatever this height is going to be the answer. So the bag is going to be at some height, and at the end, at your arm, the height will be 0. All right, so in terms of Bernoulli's principle, we're going to have this pink part of the 101,300. And on the right-hand side, it'll be that atmospheric pressure plus the 2,000. And you'll notice that this part is going to cancel out. Plus our kinetic energy is 0. And on the right-hand side, our kinetic energy is 0 and the gravitational potential energy is 0. So although it doesn't tell us that it's water, you can assume that if you're not given anything, it's basically water. Because water is most of what you're made out of. And then we go ahead and solve for height, and we get a height of 0.204 meters, which is 20.4 centimeters. Now, what's interesting is for a closed pipe, if you have the heights be the same, and then that means that these will be the same. So those can essentially cancel out because I'll say that those are a height of 0. What you're left with is this. And this is important because if you have a big velocity, that means that you're going to have a small pressure if it's going to be equal. So if this is a smaller velocity, this will have to be a bigger pressure. So for example, let's take a look at this. If I'm thinking about my bar chart, if I have a big velocity, I'm going to have a big kinetic energy of the water. And that means that I'm going to have, let's say, just this much pressure. Well, on the other side, if I have a small velocity, well, where is the rest of this going to go? Well, that means I must have a bigger pressure, which is so counterintuitive. So that means that the slower the air is going, the bigger the pressure is going to be. And that is how the Venturi effect works. And that's why these heights, the one where it's going faster, has a lower pressure. So when your velocity is bigger, your pressure is smaller. So here we have a Venturi where we have two different diameters. This is called a constriction where it's smaller. And so if it's going slower, you have a high pressure, and you have a low pressure where it's going fast. This is also how airplanes fly. If you look at how far the air has to go over the top of the wing, this has to go much farther to get here as the same air molecule. If it went here and went this way, it doesn't have to go nearly as far. So here you have the slower air, which means more pressure, and then you have high speed air on top, which means less pressure. Well, if you have more pressure on the bottom, the airplane is going to get pushed up because this air down here wants to go to where the pressure is smaller. And so your airplane essentially is floating on this pressure difference.